Welcome, I'm Igor Kule and this is next edition of our Eastern Europe Review, a program that speaks about countries east of Poland, mainly Russia, Belarus and Ukraine. And here is what we've prepared for you today. How is the Lukashenka regime killing its golden goose, the Belarusian IT industry?
When they started saying that businesses are not doing very well, right after that they started forcing them to stay in the country by administrative methods.
An activist in Russia has found hundreds of unrecorded graves of the private military Wagner group.
The young male population of the country is being exterminated both by the Russian side and by the Ukrainian side.
How do the medics evacuate people from the most dangerous place in the world right now?
It's hard at first, but then you get used to it because you have to do things and help the fighters.
If the Belarusian regime recognizes a problem in any area, expect trouble. It is quite a common occurrence that the intervention of politicians only worsens the situation. This week, dictator Lukashenka has held a meeting on the development of the Belarusian IT sector, during which he accused the West of trying to suppress the Belarusian equivalent of Silicon Valley. But it was Lukashenka's decisions that led to the fact that the IT sector of Belarus has ended up in stagnation.
Alexander Lukashenka has taken up the task of saving the Belarusian IT sector again. Until the 2020 presidential elections, it was actively developing and remained one of the most successful sectors of the economy. But today, it's moving rather towards inertia. At a meeting where the development of the high-tech park was discussed, the self-proclaimed president hinted at a reason why this is happening. According to him, Western countries are trying to suppress the Belarusian IT industry. Under conditions of economic restrictions, he found his own ways to prevent the detractors from doing so.
We need to develop new markets, replace Western investment with Asian. And in general, if a worthy product is created somewhere, no matter what the obstacles, fences and barriers are, this product will be in demand. It will be purchased.
At the meeting, Lukashenka threatened those responsible for the development of the IT industry that if there aren't any results, he will not accept explanations. De facto, he admitted that the Belarusian so-called paradise for programmers is losing customers in Western countries. And if customers don't want to see the Belarusian IT sector in one part of the planet, according to Lukashenka, it should be forced to go to another part, in an Asian and possibly African direction.
The problem is not that there are no customers. The problem is that a huge number of good specialists have left, and large companies that had trained these specialists have left as well. There was a brain drain, and if they try to attract Asian investment or Asian customers, it will be like a dead poultice.
Indeed, the average level of qualification of IT specialists has decreased. The regime has tried to retain valuable workers by banning Western investors from exiting the business. As a result, they simply reduced their staff. One of the largest players in the IT sector in the past, the EPAM company, has reduced it by 2/3. Last year, after the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine, the National Statistical Committee of Belarus restricted public access to data on the export of goods and services, including from the IT sector. Recently, they have also concealed information about the escape of workers from the free economic zone. The latest published data are for January and February of this year. According to this, in the first 2 months of the year, 1,686 workers left the information and communication sector. Last year, 16,500 Belarusian IT specialists left the high-tech park. Pavel Lieber sees a danger in the fact that Lukashenka has recognized problems in the field of high technologies.
When they started saying that businesses are not doing very well, right after that they started forcing them to stay in the country by administrative methods. I would follow what is happening very carefully if I was still in the country. I'm afraid it's possible to get into a situation like, it didn't work out well, so we will deal with you badly. We forbid you to resign and transfer everyone to the Academy of Science. appliances.
Indeed, soon after the meeting, Lukashenka signed a decree according to which a management company responsible for intensive strategic development will appear in the structure of the high-tech park. It will be appointed by the government itself. There will also be created a secretariat for the supervisory board, which is supposed to cooperate with the armed forces regarding the conscription of employees of high-tech park resident companies.
Hundreds of new graves of soldiers who fought against Ukraine have been found in southern Russia by an anti-war activist, a retired Lieutenant Colonel Vitaly Votanovsky. All the dead young men were mercenaries of the private military company Wagner, which is controlled by a businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has close ties to the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Votanovsky collected data on real military losses, but in the end he was forced to run away from Russia due to threats of physical violence and a criminal case.
A retired Russian lieutenant colonel who is against the war and a resident of the Krasnodar region, Vitaly Votanovsky, after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, decided not only to declare his anti-war position, but also to try to collect real information about the losses among the military. The Krasnodar region is located in the south of Russia. One of the largest cities nearby is Sochi. The Ukrainian border is not so far, and that is probably why hundreds of dead soldiers who had signed a contract with the private military company Wagner have been buried here. The PMC belongs to businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has close ties to Putin.
Everyone keeps asking the question, what is your personal interest and what is your financial footprint? And now, can you imagine what interest they had in catching me on some kind of financing? As I understand it, until the last moment they were looking for a connection with some kind of funding and some special services.
In the Kuban, the activist had discovered cemeteries for fighters recruited by Prigozhin. He began taking photos and videos of the graves and posted them on social networks. After that, supporters of the war began to call him a traitor to the motherland. They also threatened him with reprisals. The government also reacted to his project. The former army officer was threatened with a criminal case on discrediting the Russian army by the country's Federal Security Service. Russian security forces openly said that they wanted to send him to prison for his anti-war views.
There was no purposeful task to find the graves of some Wagnerites. The task was to show the catastrophe that is happening in the country. Now the young male population of the country is being exterminated both by the Russian side and by the Ukrainian side.
Votanovsky was forced to flee the country. Now he is in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. 4 administrative cases have been filed against Votanovsky for participating in protests. Russian security forces conducted searches of his house. He was also arrested for 43 days in total, but all of that hasn't affected the convictions of the former army officer. Vitaly searched for and documented the burial places of those who died during the war until the last moment. The relatives of those killed men wrote to the activist. They found the names of their loved ones in the photo and video, while the officials have not given any information about their fate. At the same time, the anger of the pro-Putin activists has grown.
You, Vitaly, you are a bastard, just a bastard, a bastard. In fact, by what you're doing, you are mocking these guys who gave their lives for those people who have suffered there for 8 years.
At the same time, the founder of Wagner PMC, Yevgeny Prigozhin, and the mayor of the city of Goryachi Kluch in the Krasnodar region, Sergei Belopolsky, came into conflict. The official forbade burying mercenaries in the local cemetery because this is one of the oldest resort towns in the Caucasus.
Wait, bastards, that we have to come and deal with you because you bitches are causing more harm than the Ukrainian army, than the Nazis, because you are the Nazis, the fucking administration of Goryachi Kluch.
The age of the dead ranges from 22 to 52 years. All of them were ex-prisoners sentenced for murder and theft. In recent months, they were recruited by the representatives of the Wagner PMC, violating Russian laws.
We are going to improve it and make a memorial out of this cemetery for future generations, who should understand that any war leads to the fact that the fighters leave. They leave this life, but remain with us forever, and the memory remains with us.
However, cemeteries are growing all over Russia. Russian citizens don't know the exact number of dead soldiers and mercenaries fighting on the side of Russia. The Kremlin is silent. According to the U.S. Center for Naval Analysis, the total irretrievable losses of Russia since the beginning of the full-scale aggression, including the wounded and missing, are about 160,000 people. The last time the Russian Ministry of Defense officially counted losses was in September 2022, and it was about 6,000 killed.
The battle for Bakhmut comes at a high price for the Ukrainian army. Dozens are killed and wounded every day. And the death toll would be even higher if it hadn't been for combat medics. Getting the wounded out on bad roads under enemy artillery is no easy task, but Ukrainian frontline evacuators do it every day. Details of their heroic work in our next story.
Chasiv Yar is a town just a few kilometers away from Bakhmut. It is also an essential fortified Ukrainian defense and logistics node. Shells, missiles, and the Russian Air Force are constantly hitting the town. An armored medical evacuation vehicle advances to the evacuation point, even closer to the front. The horizon is literally on fire. The medics are waiting for an armored vehicle that has managed to escape from semi-surrounded Bakhmut.
Well, yes, it's not exactly a safe zone. It hit over there. It's not entirely safe here, but it is better than over there.
The man says they are now literally living on wheels. They are constantly rescuing wounded soldiers. The cost of defending Bakhmut is high.
The number of injured has increased so far. There used to be a lot fewer.
The driver of the frontline ambulance stays behind the wheel the whole time. He's waiting. He's ready to start at a moment's notice. He doesn't seem to be paying any attention to the surrounding cannonade.
It varies, but mostly you do your job and don't get distracted. I'm used to it. I've been fighting since 2015.
A few minutes later, the armored vehicle from Bakhmut appears. They carry out the evacuation of an American M113 armored vehicle. The vehicle is fast and easy to drive. It is better than Soviet equipment for such a shuttle evacuation.
Great vehicle, no complaints whatsoever. It's just a bit tricky to maintain sometimes. Otherwise, it's better than the Soviet armored cars. The weather's getting better. It's easier now because it was tough when it got muddy, but it's okay otherwise. Are they trying to get you down? Yes. There is constant shelling, regular shelling. It depends on the enemy's rotation, because whenever they change over, they start shelling the roads.
In the meantime, they transfer the injured soldier to a vehicle, anesthetize and stabilize him. The wound is not fatal, but the soldier's hand is severely injured.
Generally, the left arm is torn. I have loosened the tourniquet.
The car starts up. The medics continue to take care of the wounded soldier on the go. Struggling with the pain, the soldier relates that he came out from behind cover to find a grenade launcher, and right at that very moment he got hit by a machine gun. Bullets hit his arm. Often the pain gets too intense.
Left hand with a gunshot fracture. Partial phalangeal amputation in the left finger. It's not a big deal. He'll live.
Shortly afterwards, the journey comes to an end. Medics bring in the wounded soldier to a stabilization center. This is a secret location. You can only film inside. The stabilization point is in the Russian artillery and missile strike zone, and it is a priority target for enemy troops. There is equipment and qualified doctors here for more complex operations and medical procedures.
It's hard at first. But then you get used to it because you have to do things and help the fighters. It can be 50 people, it can be 100, it can be more. The number of wounded is increasing. There are a lot of projectile wounds suggesting close combat.
The evacuators, having handed over the wounded, leave to rescue others. The battle for Bakhmut continues to grind down people like a hellish millstone.
And that's it for today. The Eastern Europe Review will be back next Sunday. Keep watching TVP World and stand with Ukraine.